Welcome everyone. Today we're creating a fun and dynamic sun with cloud animation. This project brings together some cool CSS animations to make a sun that glows and clouds that move across the screen. It's a simple yet powerful example of how to bring life to a web page using pure CSS and a little bit of HTML structure. We'll explore how the sun grows and fades while the clouds gently move in and out of view. Think of it like a relaxing weather animation that you can easily customize for your projects. If you like what you see and want to keep up with more web dev tutorials, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Let's jump in and make some web magic happen. Let's dive into the HTML. First up, we have a div with the class weather container. This acts as a wrapper for our whole weather animation, holding the sun and the clouds together. Inside this container, we have the div for the cloud elements. We start by adding the cloud class with a subclass of cloud front. This class represents the cloud that will be in the front, and it contains two span elements, cloud left front and cloud right front. These span elements are the individual parts that make up the cloud shape. Next, we add the span element for the sun with the classes sun and sun glow. The sun class represents the main sun shape, and the sun glow class will apply an animation to make the sun glow and change size. We follow up by adding another div with the class cloud back. This represents the cloud that will be in the background. It also contains two span elements for the back cloud parts, cloud left back and cloud right back. Finally, we close the body and HTML tags. To summarize, we've just set up the basic structure for our sun with cloud animation. We have a container for everything, a sun in the middle, and two sets of clouds that will move at different speeds. Now let's dive into the CSS. We start by targeting the body selector. We set the height to 100 VH to make sure it covers the full viewport height. Next, we set the display to flex to enable a flexible layout. We justify the content to center so everything is aligned in the middle of the screen. We also align the items to center so that our animation sits perfectly in the center. Finally, we set the background to this color to give the project a nice subtle atmosphere. Next, we move on to the weather container selector. We set the width to 250 pixels and the height to 250 pixels. Then we add some padding of 15 pixels for spacing. We display it as flex so we can easily center the content. Next, we align the items to center and justify the content to center, ensuring everything is nicely placed. That's all for the weather container styling. Now let's move on to the other elements. Let's add the sun selector. We set the width to 120 pixels and the height to 120 pixels. Next, we give it a background of a linear gradient from this color to create that warm sun glow effect. We apply a border radius of 50% to make it a perfect circle. We position the sun absolutely to place it precisely where we want it on the screen and display it as inline block to ensure it stays in the correct flow. Now we add the sun glow selector. We apply an animation called sun glow with a duration of 2 seconds, and it will repeat infinitely. This animation will make the sun glow and change size, giving it that nice glowing effect. Now pause. Let me know in the comments. How do you think this glowing effect works? I'm curious. Next, let's move on to the cloud selector. We set the width to 250 pixels to define the size of the cloud. We now target the cloud front selector. We set the margin left to 25 pixels, padding top to 45 pixels, and position it absolutely. We give it a Z index of 11 so it stays on top, and we add an animation called move clouds with a duration of 8 seconds, infinite, and ease in out for smooth movement. Next, we add the cloud back selector. We set the margin left to 150 pixels to position it from the left. We set the margin top to -30 pixels to move it upward. We apply a Z index of 10 to ensure it appears in front of other elements. Then, we add the animation move clouds with a duration of 12 seconds and set it to run infinitely with an ease in out timing function for smooth motion. Now comes the fun part. Let's start with the cloud part selector, which styles the cloud elements. We set the background color to this color to give the cloud its blue appearance. Next, we display it as inline block to position the cloud parts next to each other. We set the Z index to 5 to ensure the cloud parts appear above other elements. Now we have the cloud left front selector. We set the width to 65 pixels and the height to 65 pixels. We give it a border radius of 50%, 50% 0, 50% to create the rounded cloud shape. For the cloud right front selector, we set the width to 45 pixels, the height to 45 pixels, and a margin left of -25 pixels. We apply a border radius of 50% for the top left, top right, and bottom left corners to create a cloud shape. Next, we add the cloud left back selector, which styles the left part of the cloud in the background. We set a width of 30 pixels and a height of 30 pixels. We use a border radius of 50%, 50% 20%, 0, 50% to create a rounded cloud-like shape, giving the cloud a nice fluffy appearance. Now let's move to the cloud right back selector. We set the width to 50 pixels and height to 50 pixels. We add a margin left of -20 pixels to adjust its position. Next, we give it a border radius of 50% for rounded corners, but with a slight twist, making the top left corner flat. This creates the shape of the cloud's back part. That's all for this part. Next, we define a keyframe animation called sun glow. At 0%, we set the transform to scale 1 and the opacity to 0.6. At 100%, we scale it up to 1.4 and reduce the opacity to 0. This creates the glowing effect for the sun as it pulses outward. Finally, we define a keyframes animation called move clouds. At 0%, we set the transform to translate horizontally by 15 pixels. At 50%, we bring it back to 0, making the cloud move to its original position. Then at 100%, we move it again by 15 pixels. This creates a smooth, oscillating motion for the clouds. I've got a fun challenge for you. When we get to the sun glow animation, let me know in the comments. What do you think makes the sun look like it's glowing? I really appreciate your thoughts. Now that we've applied all the styles, our animation is looking great. The sun has a glowing effect that gently grows and fades, and the clouds float by in the background with a smooth, natural motion. It's a calm, soothing animation that's easy to implement on your website. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this sunny project, and don't forget to hit that like button if you learned something new. If you want more cool tutorials like this one, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.